be held in executive session at 5:30 to discuss personnel and legal issues. And now, everyone stand, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mrs. Prohaski.
Mrs. Kozer. Here. Dr. Lockwood. Here. Mrs. Maines. Here. Mr. McCommons. Here. Mr. Music. Mr. Palmer.
Here.
Mrs. Surratt. Here. Dr. George.
Here.
And Mr. Hauser.
Here. Superintendent's report, Dr. Toder.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Good evening, and I would like to welcome everybody to this evening's special meeting. I've already voiced Mr. Hauser. I'll do my best. To begin, I would like to review some of the exciting things that have been happening in our school district during the summer months. I know that some individuals might feel that the summer is a slow time for school districts, and actually that is not the case at all. We held an elementary STEM Megathon camp, which 60 of our elementary students attended, and it was quite amazing to see the activities in which our students were engaged. We also have held extended school year in all 5 of our buildings, and there have been 95 students attending extended school year. We have summer skills remediation occurring at all of our elementary schools with over 70 students attending. And we have also provided COVID compensatory services and special education, senior high credit recovery for a number of our students. Our school psychologists have been extremely busy this summer conducting special education and gifted evaluations. On an exciting note, the administrative team has been very active with the interview process for hiring 15 positions, including professional and support staff. To date, we've received over 300 applications for various positions that have been screened. We've held 82 first-round interviews that have occurred. We held 37 teaching lessons, and I think it's very important to note that our students are involved in the teaching lessons when we are making a recommendation for a new teacher, and we do process the feedback from our students who are involved. We had 17 final round interviews to be completed, and if you add up the time, and Mr. Paremka did this, HR, which I used to be HR, so good for you, add up the approximate 175 hours, which equates to almost 4.5 weeks of time that's been utilized to recruit the best possible individuals to join our team here at Greater Latrobe. We have ongoing negotiations with the SIU, working to come to an agreement for a new contract for our maintenance, custodial, and food service staff. And talking about our food service staff continues to provide meals for families throughout the entire summer months. Summer professional development does not stop during the summer. We've had professional development sessions occurring for our teachers as well as our administrative staff. The administrative team has also been working with the Learning 2025 AASA, which is the National Superintendents Association Senior Consultant Team, to assist with creating our future-ready comprehensive plan and our strategic plan. In fact, all of our stakeholders, we launched a survey last week to our entire school community, asking for feedback regarding the most important attributes that a Greater Latrobe School District student or learner, teacher, administrator, and what a Greater Latrobe School District graduate should possess at the time of graduation. Just yesterday, on a more somber note, but a very necessary part of our jobs, is we conducted an active shooter training at our senior high school that included 50 law enforcement officers from 10 different departments. We continue to prepare for our opening and service days with our staff, where we will provide professional development on several topics, including Learning 2025, The Leader in Me, which is a Stephen Covey project-based program, project-based learning, and text-dependent analysis, as well as many more specific professional development activities for our staff. The Board of Education, if I could move on, talking about curriculum when we talk about project-based learning, etc. Part of this summer, and the Board of Education during the summer, as well as district administrators, we have received concerns and voices regarding the teaching of critical race theory. I want to state that Greater Latrobe School District does not teach critical race theory and has no future intentions on doing so. While we do not teach critical race theory at Greater Latrobe, we always have and will continue to develop critical thinking skills with our students. Teaching students to distinguish opposing viewpoints on a topic, then determine their own viewpoint is a vital skill. As such, you must not shy away from conversations on controversial topics. Instead, we will continue to lead appropriate discussions about different perspectives and reinforce why it is important for all people to be independent thinkers and believe in different things. Critical thinking should never, ever be confused with critical race theory. I now would like to move on to present our recommended health and safety plans for the return to school. These plans have been posted on our district website and were provided this evening as well. Greater Latrobe School District places top priority on the health, safety, and welfare of all students, employees, and community members. We value in-person instruction and believe students are able to best learn when provided with high-quality, face-to-face instruction and educational opportunities. COVID-19 statewide mandatory mitigation strategies in Pennsylvania expired on June 28th. However, the Center for Disease Control actually, 3 weeks ago, highly recommended that individuals ages 12 and over are vaccinated against COVID-19 and that individuals who are not vaccinated wear face coverings while being in schools. Just about an hour and a half ago, the CDC came back out and stated that they feel all students and staff should wear face coverings. Being that the COVID-19 vaccination is not a state-mandated vaccination, school districts are not required to keep documentation or track who is or who is not vaccinated. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that all eligible individuals should receive the COVID-19 vaccine and that individuals over the age of 2 should wear face coverings whether or not they are vaccinated. I'm just trying to give you information that we have been processing for the past couple of weeks and up to the last few minutes prior to this meeting. On July 16th, the school district received notice that the Department of Health and the Pennsylvania Department of Education will not be releasing separate state guidance or recommendations for the start of the 2021-2022 school year, and advise school entities to follow current CD guidance to the greatest extent possible when creating and implementing policies and practices for their school communities. However, stating that such plans are a local decision and community transmission should be reviewed during the time of completing these plans. Again, that was from the Pennsylvania Department of Education and the Department of Health. The Greater Latrobe School District recommendation for returning to school for the 2021-22 school year is as follows. Again, this is my recommendation. The Greater Latrobe School District will begin full in-person return to instruction on Monday, August 30th, 2021 for all students. In-person instruction will also provide all students with regular access to social emotional services, mental health support, health services, as well as food services. Except where required by federal mandate, which means public transportation, including school buses, face coverings will not be mandated for students and employees, regardless of vaccination status. Students and employees will be highly encouraged to follow the CDC recommendations of at least 3 feet of distance between individuals when possible. The CDC recognizes that this distance may not always be possible, and students and employees who are more comfortable combining social distancing with wearing a face covering are encouraged to do so. Please note that the physical distancing of 3 feet may not be possible during certain instructional activities, including small group instruction, labs, cooperative learning, or similar activities. Any student or staff member wishing to wear a face covering is encouraged to do so. At this time, all meals will be served in the cafeteria, and students will be permitted to eat in the cafeteria or other designated areas for meals. GLSD Online will no longer be available for the 2021-22 school year. However, as in prior years, ECAT Online Academy through the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit may be an option for some students who wish to take advantage of full-time asynchronous instruction. A meeting with the building principal and school counselor is required before a student will be granted approval to enroll in this instructional option. Therefore, if parents choose to have their child participate in ECAT Online Academy, they need to schedule an appointment with the school counselor and/or the building principal. In the event of quarantine, a prolonged illness, or physician-recommended absence from school, a family may request a meeting with the Director of Pupil Services, Lori Galovish, building principal, and school counselor in order to discuss other instructional opportunities. So meaning if it is a short time period of 10 to 14 days or a longer time period due to an illness, there may be consideration for those students to participate in synchronous instruction, but only in those cases. The Pennsylvania Department of Health lists COVID-19 as a reportable communicable disease. As such, all cases of COVID-19 that were present in any school building during the infectious period must be reported to the school nurse, building principal, and/or pandemic coordinator within 24 hours of a positive test result. The pandemic coordinator, again, Lori Galovish, will contact the designated Pennsylvania Department of Health community health nurse within 24 hours to report the case and to receive instructions on the applicable next steps for contact tracing and quarantining. Please access our Greater Latrobe School District website under the COVID-19 tab to gain access to additional information regarding mitigation strategies of hand washing and respiratory etiquette, as well as our frequently asked questions sheet and the entire Greater Latrobe School District American Rescue and Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Health and Safety Plan. Moving forward, Greater Latrobe will continue to monitor community transmission rates and protocols specific to Greater Latrobe School District. Mitigation efforts, including the wearing of face coverings, are subject to change at any time, depending on state mandates and data relevant to support the health, safety, and welfare of the Greater Latrobe school community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tepper. Solicitor's report, Mr. Nichols.
No report, Mr. President.
At this time, I'd like to open the floor up to hearing of visitors part one. This is where you have an opportunity to come to the floor or step to the podium and speak of anything that's on the agenda. Please give your name, address, and we have a time limit of 5 minutes on this.
Good evening, John Fuller, 7 High Acre Circle. I have 2 kids in the Mountain View Elementary School. So I'll just be candid, as I look at this plan, it doesn't feel healthy, it doesn't feel safe at all. We have a CDC that's advising all kids should have masks on. My kids will be in an elementary school where none of the children have an option to be vaccinated. The American Association of Pediatrics recommends all kids wear masks. And yet, as this Delta variant is increasing, I don't understand the recommendation at all that we would not require that. To me, it doesn't feel like we're putting the safety of the children first. It feels like we're fatigued with this and want to go back to life as normal. So I welcome, the rationale behind why no masks for the kids.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Sean Wazeski. I live at 141 Wheaton Way in Latrobe. I have 2 children in the Latrobe School District right now at the high school. I did prepare a long diatribe, but I was spared from that because I did not see this health and safety plan on the website beforehand. So I prepared something in case the school board did want to impose a mask mandate on children. And I wanted to express all my points against the mask mandate, but I will save you from that. I do want to point out some people, parents might not have thought about that does affect our kids. I know watching CNN, you only think that COVID is the only thing out there, but the development of our kids is important. Beyond the health concerns of wearing a mask, such as the diseases that the bacteria that get into the mask, this increased CO2 concentration in the mask. We also have to consider the developmental stress that this puts on the kids. In the age of social media, social distancing, and remote learning, school is quickly becoming one of the only places where some children interact with adults and children. Face to face. Masks impair that ability for students to learn nonverbal communication skills, which makes up 80% of our communication. Developing good nonverbal communication skills is a sign of emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is the single biggest predictor of performance in the workplace and the strongest driver of leadership and personal excellence. Masks also block the emotional signaling between the students and the teachers. If the teacher's up in front of the classroom giving a lecture and there's students that don't understand, if they're not wearing a mask, it's usually pretty easy to pick out the kids that aren't getting it, that look confused. But if they're wearing a mask, students could miss that, and they could just go on right past that instruction, never realizing that the students never got what the teacher instructed. I believe, this is my personal belief, that masking kids and the requirements has nothing to do with stopping coronavirus. I think it's about teaching kids to be compliant, to be controlled, teaching them to be good little cogs in the system. Masks teach kids to be quiet, keep their heads down, don't speak up for themselves, and listen to authority without questioning. I think it's time we take a stand for our kids. We need to take a stand for the kids that are going to be our future leaders, our future innovators, our future inventors. We can't keep beating down our kids and breaking their ambition, making them not want to come to school, not want to learn, not want to do those kind of things to make other people feel safe. It's not their responsibility to make everybody feel safe, and we shouldn't be putting that pressure on kids. So that's my piece. I was worried when the CDC announcement came out today, that, you know, there was going to be a change in your opinion. I hope that standing firm, I hope we continue to stand firm even if the state, well, I guess we can't do anything if the state changes their mind. But I appreciate you taking the time of listening to me, and I will give you guys some input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is my very first ever school meeting. Jennifer Rossick, 2110 Raymond Avenue. I have a little girl that started kindergarten in a pandemic. I also have a teenager, and I fully agree with that gentleman. We're still picking up the pieces that the masks and the pandemic did to our teenager, mental health wise. But what I came up here to ask was, what is the school going to do?
Can you speak up just a bit?
Sorry, what is the school
You
going
might
to
want to
do?
pull up the mic and adjust it.
There we go. Sorry, I'm tall.
Thank you.
What are we going to do if there's like a widespread through the community? You know, what is that plan? Are we going to pull all the kids home? You know, send computers home? What are parents going to do? Is there a plan for that? So that's what I want to know. What is going to happen?
I can speak to that. Obviously, we will continue to monitor, and we are prepared if we would have to send kids home. That is not our goal. Every student will still have their own device. We will still be offering MiFi devices for those who do not have internet capabilities. Obviously, that is not our goal, but if we would get to a situation where we have to, yes, we have a plan for that.
Good. I have friends that have children in Derry and Blairsville and Latrobe. You guys were on top of it last year. Like there was a seamless transition. Like Derry, Latrobe, Derry and Blairsville. I mean, they were a hot mess last year. So thank you guys for the seamless transition. Thank you.
It was a long diatribe, wasn't it?
Anyone else? Education and planning. Mrs. May.
Thank you. I will move for adoption of resolution number 001 to approve the Greater Latrobe School District's ARP ESSER Health and Safety Plan for the 21-22 school year and authorize administration to submit the plan to the Pennsylvania Department of Education and post publicly on the district website as required.
Second.
A motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion?
I have a comment. When this plan initially came out, I was calling for not to wear masks for kids. I believe that this virus is going to mutate all over the place. There will be thousands and thousands of mutations currently on. And we can't fearmonger anymore. But we have experts, whether you believe them or not, who have made recommendations that we have to pay attention to. When we went through this pandemic last year, we had a panel here in Latrobe, and we're called experts. They were experts, they were good physicians and good opinions. And we followed their advice every time. My opinion is that children are very safe from this virus. If you look at all the data that's coming out of the United Kingdom, which has actually done the best tracing of any country in the world, hospitalizations and death rates have continued to fall even though the Delta variant has spiked. So people aren't dying and people aren't ending up in the hospital with numbers that they should be based on what happened last year. Our community transmission is very low right now. If you look at deaths and hospitalizations in children, there were over 4 million children officially diagnosed with COVID in the United States last year. There were 382 deaths and 4,000 hospitalizations for children. So this disease for children is not a significant problem. Most of the children that died from this disease have had significant medical problems, or they were unfortunately Black or Hispanic culture for some reason, probably because of illness and underlying socioeconomic problems, have a higher death rate than anybody else. We don't have that population in our community. But the CDC has made this recommendation, and the American Academy of Pediatrics has made a recommendation that all children should wear a mask because we still don't know where this is going to go. We want to protect the vulnerable. There's still vulnerable people in our community. There still are. There are people who have not been vaccinated. There's still grandparents and grandmothers and grandfathers with underlying medical conditions that pick their kids up from school every day and take care of them. Although the community transmission from children is reportedly way less than between adults, it still occurs. So the CDC, which their major concern is public health, they made this recommendation for public health, which is also what the American Academy of Pediatrics made a recommendation for, to protect the general public health. We're not protecting the kids so much because it really isn't such a bad disease for kids. It doesn't get over any trouble at all. But what they're trying to do is protect the community. That's what they want to do. That's what their goal is. That's what we pay the CDC for, public health. That's why they made this recommendation. And I have to go with that recommendation. And I understand the thing about masks and things. I think if we want to make some of our recommendations a little less strict, maybe kindergarten, first or second grade don't need to wear masks. And frankly, I don't think teachers need to wear masks if they've been vaccinated. But that's a decision that we have to come to as a board to make that decision. But I do believe for a temporary time, a short time period, that masks should be worn by everybody and not an option. Because everybody in this room knows that if you give a teenager an option to wear a mask and their neighbors aren't wearing one, they're not going to wear the damn mask. It's not going to happen. Plus, you have to look at why are we doing this? You know, I hate to read things that other people wrote, but you know, my daughter wrote something a year ago about wearing masks. You know, we're not allowed to talk about religion or anything in school anymore, but she used a quote from Matthew. And Matthew said, the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. That's why we're asking people to wear masks. Not to protect yourself, but to protect other people. She tells a story about her husband who worked in New York City last year when this pandemic first happened. And people were dying left and right around him. The first day he worked, 40 people died under his care. 40 people died. It's a scary thing. And we're telling people to be worried about wearing a mask. He was also telling a story about Chan escaped from the Khmer Rouge with his family. He was a Cambodian. And he talks about how his brothers and sisters were totally silent as they crept through the woods because they were afraid they would be killed by the Khmer Rouge. They saw terrible things. They saw dead people on the side of the road. They saw a little boy clinging to his dead mother and father on the side of the road crying because they were killed. That's fear. It's not wearing a mask. I think wearing a mask is a servant. Being a servant of Jesus, being a servant to God, and being a servant to mankind. I hate to put religion into it, but I'm going to because that's how I feel. I'm a Christian and that's how I think. If the CDC didn't come out with this mandate, not a mandate, it's a recommendation, and the American Academy of Pediatrics didn't come out with this recommendation, I would be all for this and not wearing a mask. I still believe you don't need to wear a mask, but I'm not going to go against professional people who are getting paid big money to make these decisions to protect our community's health. And that's why these recommendations are made. These kids will be fine no matter what we do. They're not going to die from COVID. They're not going to die from wearing a freaking mask. And that's where I'm at. So unfortunately, I'm going to vote no against the recommendation. And I don't need applause for it, I'm just telling you that that's how I think. I think that to start off wearing a mask and then taking it off in a week or two, because I frankly believe this is going to go away. I've been saying this for a year now, but I think probably by the end of summer, we'll be in a different situation. We are not with this Delta virus than we are right now. But that's why I'm voting.
Thank you, Dr. George. Any other questions or comments? Good.
I have concern about coming back. In my opinion, the most important thing is bringing our kids back to school. I want the kids in school. I want them to have face-to-face education with their teachers, and I certainly prefer that over the online education, even though I give the administration and our teachers every kudos for putting the best effort forward last year, and I think they were remarkable. But this Delta variant is affecting children at a higher rate than it did before, and it is a new unknown. And I don't trust that it's okay to put 15, 20, 25 kids into a classroom when we know everyone under 12 is not vaccinated, and some of the teenagers are not as well, and probably some of their households are not. So for the sake of honoring the experts at the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics, who came out and said that kids, everyone in the schools, not just unvaccinated people, but everyone in the schools, the students, the teachers, the staff should all be wearing masks. That would be my preference, because I think our long-term goal has to be staying in school. And the way we stay in school is by not spreading the virus. And so as a community, I'd like to see everyone who's not vaccinated step up and become vaccinated, because that's how we protect our community, and that's how we protect our kids, and therefore protect our school year. If this thing gets out of control again, as this Delta variant is giving us some new surprises, I hate to think what happens to our school year. So I'll be voting no, because I'd like to see a mask requirement in our back to school plan.
Thank you, Mrs. Sarah. Any other questions or comments?
I'm just
Ms. Oak?
vote the same as my for the same reasons.
Anyone else? I don't know. Go ahead.
I'm voting yes, and one of the things that, and I know, wearing the mask or not is resilient, but like the lady just said about mental health, my 17-year-old girl, we have seen, stayed online last year because of the fear of people saying to her, well, you don't want to catch it and kill your grandma, please spend time. There is a component to this where, as Sean said, like, you're putting so much pressure on the children to say you're responsible for the deaths of others if you don't wear your mask. These kids have so much anxiety anyway, and then you add, it's not about whether my kid can wear a mask. She wears a mask now everywhere we go. She's not against the mask. But when she looks at the fear of if she doesn't, she's killing her grandma. If she doesn't, she's responsible for deaths in the community. That's garbage. And that's not saying health-wise she shouldn't practice. She should know to love the community, to have responsibility, to do her part. But that's different than her being so scared, going through counseling last year and staying out of school. She was on lacrosse, she was on field hockey, she's coming back to school, but she's not doing any of the sports her senior year because of the fear that was presented to her, be it media, be it right or wrong. And yes, we talked earlier in executive session, the parents are to spot check that. Boy, did I try my stinking hardest to make sure she felt comfortable and she felt safe. And yes, we're washing and we're disinfecting. I have practiced, masking. She came on, you didn't have the mask on. I'm like, no one's here but me. Like, the fear of me even sitting in my office alone without the mask became such an issue. So I just am so concerned with the outlaying long-term effects of all of this, of the kids going out, of the verbal cues. I mean, I've said for years, my kids can't read when I get angry. I send them an MOG, man, they got it. I can send them something angry. They understand that they're really losing a lot of because because of the interaction with people face to face. I mean, everyone breaks up by text, date by text, everything. So we're losing all this. Now we are proof. Now you can't see, is somebody getting upset? You know, I just think there's so much more to this than just wear the mask, don't wear the mask. You know, the variants, I know people don't have the variants could be awful. Well, the vaccine doesn't help the variants. So, you know, yeah, we have to mask everywhere because getting vaccine or not, if the variant's what's going to be the worst thing out there, then all those vaccines aren't going to matter until we get the new vaccine and the new vaccine as it gets variants. So I trust that the school board will, if things go worse, if things go bad, there's something in place and it's immediate. It doesn't take them 3 weeks to decide when to close down if numbers go up. But at this point, it's not a matter of, oh, I'm fatigued and I want to get back to normal. It's the fact I look at my kids and other kids and my patients coming in and what I see mentally, the amount of 40-year-old women now I see that got on Prozac and Xanax last year. There's long-term effects to this that have nothing to do with how many people in the hospital are going.
Thank you, Dr. Long.
The whole thing is that if the children's court decides it doesn't have to vote yes, we vote yes, go ahead about the mask, and then just as Dr. Larkin mentioned, that if we do have an outbreak, we're going to have to go to mask. And it's going to be a tiring issue, and it's going to have to be policed, and we're going to have to be very careful what we do and what we use and what we use. I know that this board has in the past, and all through last year, jumped on it on a dime. Board of Elections were on it, superintendents were on it, assistant superintendents were on it, teachers, everybody. And it's going to be tough to go back to that. And our community has to realize that when we make that call, the pitching and the moaning is done. That's it. We have to protect our people, protect our folks, and protect our kids. And that's who we work for. And that's the most important thing we have to keep on our site. And I understand the whole bit, and I saw it firsthand. I talked to the superintendent, and I talked to Lori about the damage that was done mentally with our children, and it was heartbreaking. I know about how many kids were involved, and that alone scared me to my shoes. So that I don't want to see happen. But, and I don't trust the CDC at all. I trust the CDC. Dr. George brought that up, and the Society of Pediatrics just came out this afternoon and said that they should be mandated. And I get that. I trust those people. The rest of it I don't trust. We have to trust the parents, we have to trust the community. You have to trust us. When we make the move, if a problem comes up, you have to be ready. I know we're ready. We have a plan in place, ready to go. Tried and true. That's pretty much what I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Anyone else? I don't usually do this. I don't usually comment myself, but I will say tonight that the infectious rate that we are in the community makes it okay to me, okay? We're okay because our people are doing their due diligence. I think that last year proved that our school district is very good at changing direction if it's called for. I think our community is very flexible in changing directions when we need to. And I think that flexibility in our administrative staff and our school board, you have to trust us, just like you said, we did a phenomenal job last year. And I think we can do it from here on out. So you need to trust us, we will do it, we will stay on top of it. And if it's needed, the masks are needed, we will put the masks on. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Opposed?
No, we're doing the roll.
Okay. I will call for a roll call once we determine that, if that's how that works. So, Mrs. Perlowski, please now do a roll call.
Mrs. Surratt. Dr. Zorch. Mrs. Copeland?
No.
Dr. Laughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Mays? Yes. Mr. Cummins? Mr. Music?
Yes.
Mr. Palm? Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
That passes 6-0.
And that motion passes. At this time, I'd like to open the floor up to hearing of visitors part 2. This is where you in the audience may step to the podium, speak of any concerns you may have with the school district. Please state your name, address, and keep it to a 5-minute minimum. Thank you.
Yes, Jennifer Rossick, 2110 Raymond Avenue. What can the school district, specifically the high school, do about bullying against gay teenagers and transgender teenagers that are being bullied and called names, like on a daily basis?
I guess my question for Mrs. Galovish is what haven't we done to help those students?
Sure. We take bullying obviously very seriously, especially against any targeted subgroups. We have a club in the high school that any student, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, is welcome to join to help promote an inclusive atmosphere. And I would say specifically, if any family or student is experiencing bullying, it needs to be reported, and it needs to be reported specifically, because if we don't have specifics, we can't step in to help. So if it has been reported in the past to a school counselor or a school principal, and you feel that it hasn't been addressed satisfactorily, I would be happy to speak with anybody privately about that, to take it to the next level.
You know, when kids snitch, it becomes worse for them. So, you know what I mean? It's like one of those.
But if we don't know, it never has a chance to get better.
Are there teachers like in the hallway in the high school, like when they're moving between classes?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Additionally, we do have a school resource officer
Mhm.
and several school police officers. We just did that active shooter training the other day, and the question came up, how many officers do we have in the building at the high school at any one time? And it's anywhere between 4 and 6. Those folks are retired law enforcement, current law enforcement, and I will tell you that they have often remarked about how inclusive our kids are to those students who are in the categories that you have described. Coming from the outside, you know, we all like to think that our kids are ultra inclusive because that's what we train them to be. But those folks come from the outside and they watch our kids interact every day and have commented all the time about how inclusive we are.
Yeah, it doesn't bother the child that is being said to, but it bothers me.
So I understand that.
You know, like a mama bear, I'm like, do you need me to go up there and take care of it? She's like, no. You know, do you need me to call your principal? No. You know what I mean? So I'll just encourage her to maybe.
And I would be happy to speak with you privately, but again, to any family that's experiencing bullying or any kind of atmosphere that's less than inclusive, if we don't know, we can't make it better for those kids. And it doesn't necessarily have to be calling out the bully or the peer who's doing something, but it has to be addressed because we're a school, our job is to teach, and we can't teach and make it better if we don't know.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, Ms. Other business.
Yes, our first day of school will be August 30th, 2021. At the elementary, it will be K to 6 attending. At the junior and senior high, there will be notices regarding our web transition program at the junior high for incoming 7th graders attending, and then 8th graders who are actually web leaders. And at the senior high, the same for our link crew leaders. On that first day of school, individuals who are 9th graders coming to the high school will be in full attendance, and individuals who are linked through leaders will be in full attendance on that day as a transition day. If a student is a sophomore, junior, or senior and not involved with that link group, their first day would be August 31st. And again, the principals will be sending more information out. And this is nothing new that we haven't done in the past 4 or 5 years. Our next committee of the whole meeting will be Tuesday, August 17th. There will be items on that agenda asking the board for resolutions for approval, mostly staffing, due to the next week being the first Monday of Teacher in Service Day on August 24th, or on August 23rd. And then our regular board meeting will be held August 24th at 7:30 p.m. And again, I just thank everybody who is here this evening. I thank all of my board members. This has been a very difficult year and a half for everybody. And I appreciate everybody's thoughts, everybody's comments, and we will continue to do the best possible and make the best possible decisions for our students in Greater Latrobe School District. So thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. At this time, I move for adoption of resolution number 2, adjournment. We have a motion on the floor and second. All in favor?